Spring is a time of a lot of life on the farm, so the plants are just starting to grow. We can see buds on the trees. Our greenhouse is just getting started where we're planting seeds and starting to see some plants come up. And so the baby chicks are a great sign of that, like spring life and kind of feeling the momentum build for spring. So these are baby chicks that we're hatching as part of a class that I teach at Grayslake North and Grayslake Central High School, where we learn all about agriculture, farming, food production. And so we did the eggs so that the students could learn the process from the beginning, where it starts as an egg, all the way through the end of raising chickens for eggs and for food. As we're watching the baby chicks hatch, we've kept them safe and warm inside the incubator at just under 100 degrees for the last 20 to 21 days. And just this morning, we started to see them emerging from the shells, where they sort of crack a little hole, and then they widen that hole out to a point where they can actually push themselves out of the eggshell and then come out. When they first come out of the eggshell, they're still a little wet because they've been in the egg surrounded by all the fluid that was inside of the egg. And so we wait for them to dry out completely inside of this, and that way they won't get chilled when they move on to their next home in the brooder, where they'll spend the next 4 to 8 weeks. So I'm going to open the incubator up and let the chicks begin to explore their new home. I'm going to try as best as I can to capture each one. So here's the little guy. His tiny little feather, or his tiny little wings. And if you look really closely, he still has it. Usually you can't see it on the tip of his beak. They grow a special little part on their beak that helps them break through the shell initially, but that will come off and you won't be able to see it after the next day or two. And so what I'm going to do is not let him escape, and I'm going to take his beak and I'm going to try to dip it in this water. This helps the chick learn where the water is when they get thirsty, and there's a little bit of sugar in that water, and that gives them just a little bit of more energy as they get used to their new home. And then I'm going to try to encourage them under this little yellow spot, and that's where the chicks can go to stay warm. So this is meant to mimic the mother, the hen. And so when the chicks feel like they're a little too cold, they'll learn to go under there, and that's a spot where they can warm up. And they'll actually climb under there, and they'll push their back up against, there's a heat plate underneath that. And they'll push their back up underneath that heat plate, and that's what will help keep them warm. And so for the first week or so, they will spend most of their time underneath that. They'll come out and explore for a minute or two, realize they're a little cool, and then they'll go back under and stay warm. And then gradually, as they get older, they'll move further and further and spend a little more time outside. And so we have a little bit of a surprise. You can see right here, the egg is just about to hatch. I don't know if we'll get to see it come out or not. I'm not going to pick it up, but you can see the feathers and you can see the baby chick inside of there that's moving. So I'm going to get these guys all set so they can go and join their partners under the heater. So there he got a little bit to drink, and see how he tipped his head up and is sort of opening his beak. They just drink a tiny little drop of water because they're so small. And I'm not squeezing him at all, but I'm making sure that if he decides to push up with his legs that he can't jump out of my hand. So I'm going to get him underneath too. This chick has only been out of the egg for less than even a day, since about probably 2 or 3 this morning. And you can see it's already starting to grow its true feathers on the wings. They almost always start on the wings and then kind of fill in the rest of the feathers. So I'm going to work a little quickly so this last chick, it doesn't get too cold. Here's our last one. It's got some kind of pretty brown on his head, or her head. So the water has a little sugar, and it's also really, really warm. Not hot, but it's hot tap water. And that, again, is so the chickens don't get chilled. As soon as they get chilled, that can cause a lot of problems down the road. So we're trying everything we can to keep them at a nice warm temperature. Look, just inside of there, you can see the baby chick and its beak. So that's the hole. That's called pipping. So they pip the hole, and they slowly will widen it out. It starts as just a tiny little hole, just a little bit smaller than this is, and gradually they push it out, and so they'll open it up in a straight line, kind of like that, and that helps them kind of open it up almost just like a a box where they can sort of take the lid off. So when I bring students to the farm and we talk about the life and the animals and everything, I try not to do just the rosy side of things. I try to make it as realistic as possible. And so we talked about as we were hatching eggs that even though we hatched 7 eggs, only 6 of them actually hatched. And so I tried to make sure that their expectations were set so that they knew that potentially not all the eggs would hatch. And even if they did all hatch, there's a chance that not all the baby chicks would survive. When they come out of the eggs, they're really, really fragile. They're tiny little creatures. And there's quite a few things that could go wrong. We try to do everything we can in our power to limit those things, but you don't have control over everything. So the baby chicks that we just hatched that are living at the school for a couple weeks are not in here with the adult chickens because sometimes they'll see new chickens as invaders of their space and they will go after them and sometimes can hurt them. So we keep the baby chicks safe and sound in a separate space until they're fairly old, at which point we'll really slowly introduce them to the other chickens. And we do that by either putting them into a cage inside of there so they can get to know each other through a fence, or we'll do it just on the outside so they can slowly build familiarity with each other and interact, but without actually being able to have full contact. And that makes the transition a lot longer, but a lot smoother and safer for the new chickens. So chickens like a dark kind of quiet spot to lay their eggs. It makes them feel a little safer when they're going to lay it. And so that's what this is. We call this a nest box. So rather than having them go off to the side somewhere and make a nest outside where a lot of times the eggs might break, we provide this for the chickens. The flaps make it a little darker so they feel a little bit more protected. And they come in here. And the great thing about this style of nest box is when they lay the eggs, as soon as they stand up, the eggs roll out from under them. And then they're collected into this tray. And so they stay safe. There's very few eggs that get broken in here, and they stay a little cleaner. They get a little dusty, but otherwise they stay a lot cleaner than they do if they stayed in with the chickens. And this then makes it really easy for us to collect the eggs as opposed to coming in and having to move chickens out of the way and try to collect the eggs without cracking them. So this is a really nice system for us to both have cleaner eggs and better protected eggs as the chickens lay them. So every so often, a hen will decide that she wants to lay eggs to hatch. We call that brooding, so the hen is getting broody in her behavior, and she'll find a spot. This seems like an odd spot to me because there's a lot of traffic here, but she'll find a spot where she thinks it's a little bit more quiet, and she will come in and lay eggs, and she'll just keep laying eggs until she's got a clutch of, usually it's between 10 and 12, but the numbers vary quite a bit. And then after that, she will stay on the nest and brood those eggs, and so she'll keep them warm all the time. She won't get up that often to eat or drink, very rarely, but she'll stay on that nest until the eggs hatch. And then once they hatch, then she'll care for the baby chicks by protecting them and keeping them warm. And you can see chickens lay all sorts of different colored eggs. So there's brown eggs, there's some that are a little bit of green, white. So eggs come in all different sizes. These obviously aren't the identical eggs that we incubated with the school, but very similar. So we came in and collected eggs from the chickens. Most of our eggs are fertilized because we have a number of roosters in with the chickens. So if we decided to keep these warm for 21 days or so, likely most of these eggs would hatch as well. That's not our intention for these. These eggs we'll sell or we'll take home and our family will eat them.